So let me just lay out the framework. This is your first class of the CFA level 1 program. Now, for last 10 years, I've been doing the first class typically here in Pune or in Mumbai. And this is the first time I'm doing it online. So I'm excited and I'm happy that I have this opportunity to interact with you. Here's what's going to happen today. So about first 10 minutes, roughly 10 minutes of the class, we're going to have some general discussion and do's and don'ts during the sessions so that we kind of set a solid format for what's going to come. After that, my main session is going to go on for about 90 minutes, wherein I'm going to start with something called, as a very popular program at FinTree, we call this as level 0. So what we typically do in a level 0 course is we start with the essential concepts, which are extremely important if you want to appreciate the level 1 concepts. Right? For example, in level as equity valuation, a reading. So in the level 0, we build background for equity valuation. Right? It's all the basic concepts that you need so that you understand the equity valuation part well. So we would be starting with the first level 0 session today. And after that, for another 15 to 20 minutes of the class, I'm going to have discussion on some operational important details to give you an overall perspective on how your FinTree experience is going to be over the period of next 6 months. And then I'm going to close the session with Q&As and whatever queries that you guys might have with respect to studies topic or whatever in general that you'd like to discuss. Okay, so that's roughly the agenda. So since I think everyone is in place and you guys are comfortable, I'm going to start with some just general discussion. So as I was telling you earlier, that your mode of communication with me during the session is going to be twofold. If you're participating within the Zoom session, chat box. Now, this chat box is an easy way to communicate. It's just that you want to be a little careful while using the chat box because for me, it creates a clutter at times. So let's do a small experiment. Here's what we'll do. If you're on the chat box right now, just type in the name of your city so that I'll understand that you're city you're from. Just type in the name of your city here. So I can see a lot of Pune and Mumbai there. Hyderabad, Bangalore, Lucknow. All right, Bengaluru, Nagar, Nasik, Gurgaon. Hi, Rishikesh. All right, wonderful. Durgapur. Okay, happy to know that. Great, good. So, understood now. Now, second way you can communicate with me is you can just talk to me during the session. So if anyone is willing to volunteer, just raise your hand, and then I'll show you how the audio discussion works. So let me pick up Himanshu here randomly. Okay, again, my internet connection is a little shaky. And I kind of feel helpless here. There's nothing you can do about it. So we'll just try to work with it. In case if you experience disturbances, just put this in the chat box. Okay, so I'm going to enable Himanshu's audio. And Himanshu, you should be able to speak now. You'll have to unmute yourself, Himanshu, and then see if you can speak.
Hi, Utkarsh sir, good morning.
Good morning, Himanshu. Okay, I think it's internet either at your end or my end, but we kind of lost you there.
Yeah, bit loose connection is there, sir. Still, am I audible, sir, to you?
You're audible, yes. You're audible in bits and pieces, but thank you for volunteering.
Thanks.
Yes, so this is how it works. So, for example, at times you feel that I cannot type in my query. because it's too complicated or too abstract, then they just raise your hand and you can post your question. You can just ask me orally, right? So either way, whether you prefer typing in the chat box or you prefer asking me orally, either way it's going to be okay. Now the general rule that I follow in my sessions is there is no fixed time for asking question. You can ask me question any time during the class. In fact, and there is no limit on how many questions you can ask. In fact, the more questions you ask, better it is for all of us to learn. So from that perspective, for example, let's say we're talking about a particular concept and you feel that you want to ask, just raise your hand and request for audio to be enabled, or just type in the chat box, and then I will try to answer it there and there itself. Now, regarding the chat box, what we've tried to do is we've kept an open architecture, and we've tried to be a little democratic there. So what I mean by that is that your chat can be done with me, but you would also be able to chat with the other participants in the class through the chat box, right? So the only thing that we want to be careful with is not to provide any sort of contact information on the chat box. So no mobile numbers, no internet links, no email IDs. As long as we take care of that and chat box is used exclusively for discussing the concepts or asking queries, then I think we're good to go. Okay, so that's enough background. Now let's get started with the level 0 class. And then once I finish discussing my concept, then again, I will be taking you back to class schedule and operational details, how to study, which books to read. So all of that we would be discussing towards the end of the class. So we're starting with our first level 0 session. This first level 0 session in the CFA class, we're going to be on. Okay. First level 0 class is going to be on equity investments. I would need a total of 2 classes for this to cover the entire background. So this class and roughly about half of next class is going to be on discussion of equity investments itself. So before I start the session, let's do an interesting poll. How many of you have been investing in equity markets for, let's say, some time now? Or how many of you have bought shares of company directly? You can just raise your hand. Okay, that looks like roughly. And how many of you feel fascinated by it and want to get started but don't know how? 10% of the class, maybe a little more. And how many of you feel that it's too risky and you probably want to stay away from the equity markets? You can either raise your hands or you can say me. How many of you feel that equities are too risky and you probably want to stay away from them? And that's what your parents said? Okay. All right. So to give you a little bit of my experience in equities, I kind of come from a family where my grandparents, especially on my mother's side, and then my parents, and then myself. So we kind of have been in markets for a reasonable amount of time, and I have drawn heavily from discussing with my father over a period of time in terms of how he has been investing in the markets. I myself started investing somewhere around 2004, 2005. And I wouldn't call it investing, it was more of trading or maybe a desire to make quick bucks. And from 2004 to 2008, 8.5, I did a lot of tomfoolery, a lot of stupid things. The things that today I tell people that you should not do, based on my own experience. gave up for a brief period of time, and then I started investing again. In 2009, I have been investing and practicing or trying to practice something called as value investment. And what I would do in these two sessions is to give you a very broad view of how do you want to look at the equity markets. And I will also throw in a little bit of my experience of how I've been investing over a period of time. So let's kind of work a little bit in the background and understand what the whole idea of equity is. So let's say that you and I want a small business. So give me some ideas. Tell me what business ideas can we explore in the current environment? Let's start a new business. Give me some ideas there. Prerna, keep your questions on hold. Okay. Yashaswi says fresh brewery production. Okay. Amit, you're kind of stealing my mojo there. Amit says FinTree. So I was anyways going to come to that. Online essentials delivery, vegetable vendor. Okay. Milk dairy. Milk dairy, interesting. Mask production. Sanitization products, medical store. I know what you think. I think you mean a liquor store, but since you couldn't say that on the first day of the class, maybe maybe you typed in medical store. Disinfectant case. Low cost light cycles. Greenhouse, PPE kits. Okay. Vaccine for COVID-19. Yeah, why not? I mean, if you can get hold of the smartest people, chai ki tapri. I'm going to take that example, and anyways, I kind of so this is one of my favorite examples. We would start a business called, and every time I use this name, I kind of think that I should get it trademarked, and then I just happen to let it go. But we would start a nice chai ki tapri in India, right? So a nice small chai stall, okay? And let's say here, Utkarsh, and we'll take some volunteers. We'll probably stick to Himanshu, to whom we spoke a little earlier. So Himanshu, both of us decide to start the business in partnership. Okay, so what we have right now is a partnership structure. Now, if you decide to have a partnership structure, a legal structure, your legal requirements are kind of minimum, right? You don't have to worry too much about legal compliances, especially on the reporting front. As long as you're paying your taxes and not doing anything illegal, you're more or less covered from a partnership perspective. So we start the business, and let's say we start one stall. Maybe initially we start with home delivery due to the whole lockdown environment, and then we start with one stall. Now, we start a stall, and people just love set up one more. So what we do is we kind of formalize the whole process. We figure out some sort of a fixed mechanism to produce the tea and then replicate the same business model everywhere. So from one, now we have two. From two, now we have three. So the question that comes now is, you should ask that, Utkarsh, how are you getting money to set up new branches, right? How do you get money? So right now, what we're doing is initially internally funding ourselves. Do you know what that means? Can you tell me what would be an internally funding environment situation? Borrowed money, family and friends? No. And funding means, internal funding means, see, initially when we started the business, me and Himanshu put in our own money, right? But after that, when I'm growing the business, what I'm doing is I'm generating profits from my existing shops, the profits from my existing shop, and the same profit funding means funding from the profits. Okay, shaky. Let me know if you experience any difficulty. Profits generated, right? And it doesn't have to be very difficult. It's like this. I set up a new tea stall. And let's say in the first year, I achieve sales of maybe 500,000. Okay, I'm just making up a random number. And my cost, including production cost, advertisement cost, all the costs combined, let's assume they were 200,000. So I made a profit of 300. So what I can do is I can take this profit and put that into a new stall, right? So funding from your internally generated funds or funding from your profits. So that's one way to do it. So imagine now what's happening is in the first year, let's say we end up having 5 stores or 5 shops. Then in the second year, we go 10 stores. Now, when we reach the second year, what we realize that it seems like this model is working. It seems like people are appreciating, the product that we're delivering. So now is the time to expand the business aggressively, right? Expand the business and take it to maybe multiple cities in one go. So now if you decide to expand, tell me what are we going to need here? If we decide to expand the business, what are we going to need? So we're going to need capital, right? We're going to need a lot of money so that we can expand aggressively. So what we decide to do is first convert partnership to something called as a private limited business. Right? Now, one of the benefit of having a private limited company is now it's easier for you to go and raise money, to go and ask people to invest into your business. So we convert private limited company, and then what we do is something called as FFR. Does anyone know what that means? Does anyone know what FFR means? Friends and family round, right? So what do you mean by friends and family round? So let's say Dashrath, who's also attending classes, is a colleague of mine at FinTree. So I go to Dashrath and I tell him that, listen, Dashrath, I've started this new chai business, or I've started this new tea business, and the business is doing really good. So would you like to invest and become an equity owner, become a owner of the business or equity shareholder of the business? He says, okay. So now so this is Utkarsh and Himanshu. We were the original directors or promoters of the company. Now a third guy comes in, Dashrath. Now Dashrath is not the management of the company. He's just a shareholder, correct? So what he does is he gives us money. We give him some shares in return based on some valuation that we do. And then with that money, we start expanding business. Practice in a startup world to keep on raising money. So you do friends and family round, and from let's say 10 stores, now you've reached to 20, 25 stores. You feel that business is increasing. So if business is increasing, then you need more money. And this time your business has much more validity. So what you do now, you go to a different type of investor, typically called as angels. Right? Have you heard about angels? So there are who are these angels? I mean, the the word angel is kind of, I mean, I know the moment I said angel, you're thinking of a nice, pretty girl. So, so that's not the dimension on which we're thinking. In financial world, angel is uh, in the story. Okay, financial world, angel is anyone who writes you a check, right? So maybe you're aware of. Maybe you're aware of, let's say, CEO of a listed company, and you feel that that guy has a lot of cash. Uh, that guy has a lot of cash. So you go to him and you tell him that, see, I'm doing this business, it's growing. Would you like to invest? So let's say one more guy comes in, he buys shares of your company, and now this is the CEO of XYZ Limited. Okay, and he's the angel investor in your business. So what's happening is, as you're onboarding new people into ownership structure, your proportionate ownership has started reducing. For example, originally when Utkarsh and Himanshu started business, we had 50-50% ownership. Now, when Dashrath came in, so our ownership reduced. Now maybe our ownership is even further reduced because this new angel investor is coming. Let's say now from 30-40 stores, we've reached to 60-70-80 stores. So next, you need funding again. Then you go to these guys called VCs. Heard of them? Right. Within VCs also there are, VCs is venture capitalists. So within VCs also there are multiple categories. There are early stage VCs, late stage VCs. What these guys would simply do is they would evaluate your business, and if they feel that you have a lot of juice, they would put in money into your business. You take the money, and they also become a shareholder. So now one VC has also come on to board. And now you can see that a lot of crowding has started happening here, right? Now your business grows even further. And let us say you've become massive now. You have, let's say, 500 stores across the country. Now you feel that you not only want to be in India, probably you want to expand to other tea drinking nations. So let's say you think of countries like maybe UK, and you feel that you twist how you make your tea and probably start setting up stores in UK. So now you need more money. So then you go to these people called PEs. PEs is private equity funds. VCs is venture capitalist. So you go to this company called PEs. So now PE will also come in. That's your entire journey. And your business throughout the period was growing. So maybe when you started with one store, and then when you did friends and family round, you had 10 stores. Then when you went to angel, maybe 50 stores. You went to VC with 100 stores, and you went to PE when you were at 500 stores. Now your business is established. There's reasonable certainty that you're going to make money. You decide to expand in other geographies. And now I'm going to hit the main point. Now, all these investors, right? So which investors? So starting with Dashrath came in which round? He came in friends and family round. Then angel came in, and then VCs came in, and then PE guys came in. All these investors, what they need is they need an exit. Now, what do you mean by exit? In a very simple language, they need to sell their investment. And get some returns, get some money back on the amount that they've put in. Now, this is where decide to do something called as, tell me, something called as IPO. So there might be some lag on the internet, but it should improve super fast. So company would do IPO, And what do you mean by IPOs? In an IPO process, these people, uh, initial public offering, right? Thank you, Sagar. These people will offload their shares. Okay, so typically this is called as an offer for sale to thousands of shareholders like you and me, typically called as retail shareholders. And this is also the time a lot of institutions will buy into the share of the company. And these institutions could be either mutual funds or this could be insurance company. So this process of IPO, it's called the primary market, right? So when you're buying shares in an IPO, in an initial public offering, we typically call this as the primary market. Now, why do we call it primary? Because you're buying your shares from the holders. Okay, so what could be some good examples of companies which have gone through that process, especially in the Indian context? So let's look at some of the old companies now, relatively old. Have you heard of a company called Just Dial? Heard of them? Just Dial? So Just Dial has gone through, more or less the same process, right? So they started the business, then raised money through variety of sources, and then eventually they did the IPO. And now you and me, we can buy shares of the company if you want. Then, apart from Just Dial, think of a very recent entrant onto Indian stock markets, a company called TCNS Clothing. TCNS Clothing, has anyone heard of them? Okay, now all the women who are attending class and maybe married men, you guys would probably know this company. Once I tell you the brand W. Have you guys heard of the brand W? Yeah, if you typically go to a mall in women's section, and if you're trying to buy Indian ethnic clothing, you would come across W. Or if you've heard the brand Aurelia, I don't know how do I spell it, maybe a single double A. Have you heard of Aurelia? So same company, right? W Aurelia, I think they have a couple of more brands. I cannot recall the name. But even these guys kind of went through the same curve that I just discussed about, where you start slow and you slowly increase your business. So the reason why I'm building this story for you, I'll hit the point very soon. So now what happens in the next stage is that all these people who bought the shares in IPO. So who were these people? So these are retail shareholders. These are retail shareholders. And there are institutions, right? So these are the people who own shares right now, right? They own shares. And which type of institutions we discuss? So mutual funds or insurance companies or a lot of different type of institutions. Now, what these guys will do is they will go on to a platform called as an exchange. Now, what could be an exchange? A very easy way to think of an exchange. And of course, an example in India would be a national stock exchange or a Bombay stock exchange. But a very easy way to think of exchange is think of any online platform where buyers and sellers meet each other. Right? Just think of any online platform. Give me some names. Give me some names of the platform that you can think of where buyers and sellers meet each other. Okay, so we have OLX. OLX is a great example. It doesn't have to be finance, right? Anything that you can come across. Okay, Alibaba. Amazon, that's a good example. Amazon would fit in. Dashrath is saying shadi.com. Dashrath is saying shadi.com. I would say no, Tinder. But you get the idea, right? The idea is that an exchange is just an online meeting place for people to communicate and transact with each other. So these are the guys who own shares, and then these would be the people who may want to buy the shares, right? Want to buy the shares. And again, maybe institutions want to buy the shares. And when these people transact with each other, so the ones who have the shares are selling the shares to the ones who want to buy them. This is what we generally call as the secondary market. So when you and I, when we discuss about, when someone says that today I bought 1,000 shares of, let's say, Infosys, an Indian IT company. So when someone says I bought 1,000 shares of Infosys, what they're simply saying is I bought 1,000 shares from someone who was owning the shares earlier, right? It's the transaction that's taking place on an exchange where these people are transferring their ownership to you. So here is probably the most important takeaway from the session. And of course, as the session progresses, the things will become more and more technical, but right now I'm keeping them really nice and easy for all of us. So one of the legendary investors in the world, Warren Buffett, if you read any of his material, if you listen to his interview, uh, if you try to browse through his content, his letters, there is one thing that he keeps on saying with respect to stock markets. And the reason why I built up the entire story for you is so that you appreciate this particular point. And the point is, Warren Buffett says that I don't buy stocks. Warren Buffett says, I don't buy stocks. I buy businesses. Right? That's kind of the bottom line, if you think of it, that I am not buying stocks, I'm buying businesses. And I think the moment you and I start thinking like that, life becomes way easier. For example, at times, a lot of us, and you and me, we end up, getting into the scheme of things and buying exactly what you wouldn't want to buy. For example, uh, there was a lot of debate on Yes Bank sometime back, right? One of the private sector banks in India, which was in deep trouble. And then there were people talking about, if I buy the share at 100 rupees, maybe 3 years down the line, the share will become 300. So that is not the right mental frame to think. The right mental frame for you to think is that, do I want to get into banking business? And if yes, is Yes Bank is an appropriate vehicle for me to be in the banking business? Or should I look at other options like maybe HDFCs and Kotaks of the world? Are you following what I'm trying to say? So every time you're looking at stocks, we don't want to look at stocks as if we're buying stocks. We want to look at stocks as if we are getting into the business. And the moment that thought process gets developed, I think a lot of stock market investing will start making much more sense to you. All right, so this is where I'm going to shut up for a while now because I'm sure you guys have a lot of questions. So what I will do is I will give you a 30 seconds or a 1 minute window where you can post your queries on the chat box, and then I would try to reply them. Okay, again, I'm repeating, the session is being broadcasted live on YouTube. So I don't have access to YouTube chat at this moment, but maybe towards the end of the session, I can respond to all the YouTube queries as well. So first question is, does CFA helps in shaping the ideas of investment and how? So Abhishek, I have personally benefited immensely, at least on the investment front from the CFA program. So prior to CFA, my background was, I was a chartered accountant. I'm still a chartered accountant. But I think the thing that I learned in CFA most is how do you, analyze any situation or any business, which I wouldn't have otherwise learned had I not done the program. So of course, throughout this class, I would be giving a lot of stocks example where I'll tell you that how the knowledge helped. But yes, if investment is what you want to see, investment is what you want to learn, I'm very sure CFA is going to help you tremendously. Okay, Vedant is asking, should I take notes as you speak? So Vedant, here's a good news for you. You don't have to write anything during the class unless and until I ask you to. So what I do is I'm generally more visual as a learner and maybe also as a teacher. So you would see I end up doing a lot of stupid drawings in the class. And what I do is at the end of the class, I convert these drawings into a PDF, right? So all my screen that you see, that gets converted to a PDF. And we call these PDFs as the class notes. And these notes are shared with you on the WhatsApp broadcast list. So when you want to revise what happened in the class, you can just go through the PDF that we will be sharing with you. But if you want to scribble during the class, that's perfectly okay. So that's really your choice. Okay. Mohit wants to know about VCs and PEs. So Mohit, we would have a dedicated session to discuss VCs and PEs, but I'll give you a very quick idea. Let me show you an example of a VC maybe. So if you've heard of these guys, okay, my keyboard might not work here. I'm going to mess around with spelling because my keyboard, the Q part doesn't work when I'm using my writing software. And it seems it, okay. Let's see if Google is smart enough to pick that up. Good. So Sequoia, right? So these guys are the VCs that you want to know. And if you look at some of the companies that you've invested, you'd be impressed with looking at the investment portfolio. Okay, so let me show you some of the companies. I don't know how many of these names we'll know, but I'll probably try to pick up some popular names. If you know some other names, let me know. Let's say Cafe Coffee Day. Heard of them? Of course, all of us know Cafe Coffee Day. I don't know a lot of other these businesses. Do you guys know eClerx? Right, it's a listed company now. So Cafe Coffee Day, eClerx both listed. Coffee Day is in kind of trouble now. Genesis Colors, Global, Health Engine, Hector Beverages, InfoEdge. InfoEdge, I'm sure you've heard about them. Have you guys heard of Naukri.com? Naukri, right? I mean, it's a job search engine. So InfoEdge owns Naukri.com. And if you guys have heard Zomato, right? So InfoEdge is an investor in Zomato. If you've heard of Policy Bazaar, InfoEdge is again an investor there. Just Dial, I'm sure we know, and we can just keep on doing this the whole day, right? Ola Cabs and a lot of companies, Rebel Foods is your popular brand of foods that we order on Swiggy these days. They have multiple brands, Fasos and some biryani, Mehruz or some other biryani, right? So that's your Rebel Foods. And there are so many other companies that we just keep on looking at them. Zomato is also there, by the way. So now this is what a VC fund is, right? So what they would typically do, or what they would typically do is they would invest into companies at relatively early stage, and then they would make money by expanding the size of the business along with the entrepreneurs or the promoters, and then eventually getting an exit either through IPO or through second sell. So we'll again, that's a little technical, but we'll discuss them inside specific classes. Then what would be a PE firm? A PE firm is a slightly larger firm. So what VCs will do is VCs will invest into generally, not always, but VCs will invest into relatively smaller ticket transactions, smaller businesses. But private equity firms would invest into larger firms. For example, if you've heard of the recent KKR Geo investment, I don't know how many of you've heard of it. Right, so we had that announcement a couple of days back on Friday. So decided to invest about $1.5 billion in the Reliance Geo platform, right, along with Facebook. So this is typically an example of a private equity transaction, which is substantially larger size. Though the line is kind of getting blurry between the two, but that's what you want to think of them, VCs and PEs, that they would invest before the company is listed most of the times. Okay, let's see if I can answer maybe one or two more questions. Suchi is asking, how do I write Mac on the screen? Trying to figure out what tool is it. So Suchi, I use this particular tablet. It's called Wacom. You can buy this on Amazon for, like, there are different varieties as low as 2,000-3,000 rupees, and some of the nicer ones are a little expensive. So just figure out which one you like, and you can get started. And in terms of softwares, I use a variety of softwares. These days, even Excel lets you write on the screen. So there are plenty of options in terms of which screenwriting software you want to use. Okay. All right then. So let's start with the session now, right? So hopefully you guys are convinced, or at least willing to consider this idea that we don't buy stocks, we buy businesses. Now, today we're going to look at the 4 principles that Warren Buffett follows when he decides to buy the stocks. 4 principles that Warren Buffett follows when he decides to buy the stocks, some sort of a criteria, right? Stock picking criteria, a stock picking style of sorts. Now, may I assume all of you know who Warren Buffett is? Right? That's kind of a given, right? So let's not insult the man by me trying to tell you who he is. I think all of us know. Not just go and Google him up. I'm sure you'd be impressed. So great investor and equally great and fascinating personality. Lots to learn for all of us. So what Warren Buffett does is he writes a letter to the shareholder every year. Okay, so he writes a letter to the shareholder every year, and in that letter he speaks his heart out, and he gives a lot of important insights into his mental model in terms of how he looks at the things. So in one of the letters, I think in 2007 or 2008, Warren Buffett spelled out his success formula. So WB letters. Let's see if we can. Okay, I'll probably have to type in the whole thing here. All right. Now, one good news for you is these letters are available free of cost for you to download on the Berkshire Hathaway website. So you don't have to pay money. I've seen some smart people, what they've done is they have accumulated these letters into one single PDF and they sell it as a book on Amazon, right? So hats off to them for selling it, and feel bad for people who buy it because the letters are available literally free of cost for us to work through. So I think in 2007 or 8 letter, so I don't remember, so I'm going to look up both of them so that I can quickly find out. Okay, definitely is not 2008, so it's 2007. Okay, all right, here we go. So this is the letter of Warren Buffett from the year 2007. This is a year before the massive crisis that all of us experienced, the subprime crisis. And this is where Warren Buffett spells out his formula. right? It's almost the greatest, the smartest investor in the world. What's his mental template? How does he buy the stock? So that's kind of gets spelled out in this particular process. So let's look at what he has to say there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to shut up for a few seconds now, and I want you to read through this paragraph carefully, and then we will start discussing them one by one. Yeah, so I'm experiencing some internet issues. There might be some lags in between, but they get okay, I think, in a few seconds. So if it persists, just put it on the chat box. I just want you to read this section, and then we're going to start discussing that. Sure. Okay, I did not expect want you to read this part, but if you've read this, it's perfectly okay. So maybe you can consider reading this paragraph itself, but don't worry about what we have after this. Okay, so let's stick to this particular section. And once you've finished, then we will start discussing that step by step. Yeah, Tejas letter. That's right. That's Charlie Munger. Have you finished reading them? Please let me know once you have, so that then we can start discussing them step by step. In the meanwhile, I'll also open the YouTube on my mobile phone, just in case if there are any queries coming on YouTube. All right, so we have Hassan on YouTube, Rohit Verma, Rishikesh, Kapi, Mayank. Happy to have you guys. I would be able to monitor the YouTube chat maybe in a while. And in the meanwhile, let's continue with this particular section. Okay. So Charlie is kind of accomplice in crime. Charlie Munger. I mean, probably discussing about Warren Buffett kind of deserves a session by itself. And you can see that I'm a big fan. I've learned immensely, and a lot of things I've shamelessly copied. Right, a lot of his thought process I've tried to implement in my investment process, and also in my life of sorts. So here's what they do. Charlie and I look for companies that have. So this is point number a business we understand. And think of it, the most sophisticated investor in the world, the most successful investor in the world, when you go to him and you ask him, that what's your mantra to success in stock markets, he does not give you some fancy formulas. He doesn't give you the peg ratio, or he doesn't give you the 2 point metric, uh, or he does not give you any of that. He says first start looking at the businesses that you understand in the first place. Now, you might feel, okay, what's in that? What's in that? I mean, I understand businesses. So I have personally, I'll tell you experiences where I have tried to do things which are complex and backfired, and some of the very simple ideas where I have made money in my personal investment landscape. So I'll probably talk about two companies. One is one is about my ex love. So I always say this, that when I'm looking at stocks, either I'm having an affair, or I'm into a long-term game. Uh, and generally, I want to reduce the affairs and I want to have more of a long-term game. The only thing is, in this dating environment, it's okay to date multiple stocks at the same time. So one of the stock to whom I was almost married for years was this company called HUL. Heard of it? Correct. Hindustan Unilever. It's the Unilever arm, the Indian arm of the global Unilever. And it's not a very complicated business to understand. FMCG, they make shampoos and bathing bars and a lot of products around it. Uh, and what's the hypothesis, like how do you invest into a company like Unilever? So you say yourself that in India we have 130 crores of population, and at some stage these people will get up in the morning and hopefully they'll go and take a bath, and if they do, then they're going to need shampoos and bathing bars and toothpaste and deodorants and so many things. And HUL is definitely a dominant player there. It's not a very difficult business to understand. So I got into this stock around 2009. I exited, unfortunately, a couple of years ago, right at the point from where it started picking up in the market. But definitely, this rule has worked for me in the past. Now, where it did not work is about some time back, I got into this company called Tejas Networks. Okay, now I got into this company. I heard about this company from one student of mine who happened to be an ex hedge fund manager, and he had got into the company. So I looked at his investment hypothesis, and primarily it was the management which was very attractive for me. So I got into the business. Now, if you'd ask me, Utkarsh, what does Tejas Network do? What does Tejas Network do? Uh, even even today, after being in the company for almost 6 months or 8 months now, I still cannot tell you what the business is. I mean, I understand they have something to do with telecommunication. I understand that their clients are companies like Reliance, or maybe Airtel or Idea Vodafone. But it's I still struggle a lot, trying to simplify the business. And what I'm learned with experience is that if you cannot explain the business in 30 seconds in a very easy fashion, then probably you want to stay away from businesses like those. This is the rule that helped me, or kind of saved me from avoiding the whole crypto phase or the crypto craze, because I could never understand the crypto environment. Right, so extremely powerful rule. Next time you're looking at a stock, spend some time and learn what businesses, what business they're getting into. Okay, and I can keep on giving you the examples whole day, but I'll probably stop with point A now. Let's look at point B, favorable long-term economics. Tell me, what do you think this means? Favorable long-term economics. Yeah, so favorable long-term economics, it simply means, whether the business is experiencing, so we use this technical term, headwinds or tailwinds. Uh, Tailwinds is, the pressure of air from your back, from your tail, pushing you further. And headwinds is the pressure from the front, which is pushing you backwards. So you basically want to be in businesses with a lot of tailwinds. You want businesses where things are working in their favor. For example, for example, uh, companies which in today's environment, manufacture, companies which manufacture, okay, GM, thank you, I appreciate it. Companies which manufacture, let us say, cameras, right? So right from the days of Kodak, do you guys remember Kodak? Heard of Kodak at least? Yeah. Uh, kind of died, right? Kind of died. I mean, at one stage Kodak was a big thing, and then kind of just disappeared with time. Or companies which are manufacturing cameras today. What's happening is that mobile phones are eating up a big chunk of their market. So they're not a mass market product anymore. Probably they're a market for the enthusiasts. They're a market for people, who want to buy cameras and make a career out of it, maybe. Or even a better example, I was just thinking about this, and I talked in my one of my financial modeling classes. Your direct to home cable operators or direct to home operators, for example, Dish TV or Tata Sky. Now, compare them with the OTT operators like Netflix, and let's say Hotstar. Okay, so let me ask you this: how many of you have Netflix installed on one of your devices? How many of you have access to Netflix? Right, that's a large number of people. That's almost 55 to 60% of the class. And if you don't have Netflix, probably you would have Hotstar, or you would have any of those apps. So what I see is slowly, a lot of people are moving to content like on-demand content like Netflix or Hotstar or all the competing apps, which is not a good news for players like Tata Sky. Correct? So clearly we see some sort of a shift in that industry. Does it make sense to you? So what Warren Buffett sees is, he says that are there businesses where no matter what, they are going to survive for next 10, 15 years. So what he talks about an enduring moat, which by the way is a phenomenal concept. It's kind of a war concept that Warren Buffett brought into an investment horizon. Okay, so what do you mean by moat now? Does anyone know what moat means? I'll probably get my charger started here. Yeah, yeah, spot on. Many of you got the answer right. I'll probably try to simplify for you what a moat means. It's not very difficult to appreciate. Let us say you have, with my lousy drawing skills. So let us say you have a fort, right? Now, typically, if you've seen any of the fort in India, or even like a lot of places around the world, you typically see that there is some sort of a protective wall around it. Have you seen that? And there's a protective wall, a large wall around it. And what happens is, and a lot of times, you would see that there are two layers of walls here. And between the two large layers of wall, there would be a water body, right? So there would be a water body. And like maybe some people say that there would be, nasty animals, like for example, there might be crocodiles inside the water or whatever, any other reptiles. And the whole idea is, when enemy is trying to attack you, yeah, of course, why not? Let's have some dinosaurs as well. Uh, when enemies are trying to attack you, what you want is, you want to have some sort of a protective layer, right? So in business, we call that as a moat. Now, moat itself deserves, a lot of discussion, but I'll give you some examples here. Um, I want all of you to put in the name of the bank, the name of the bank with which you have an account. Like just typing the name of the bank with which you have an account. So I'm getting a lot of SBIs, Axis, HDFC, Bank of Baroda, ICICI, Kota Kinabalu, okay, City, Canara Bank, okay. And now I want you to think, um, when was the last time you guys went and closed a bank account? When was the last time you guys went and closed a bank account and opened a new one? If anyone has done that in the last 1 year, just put me in the chat box on YouTube as well as Zoom. I think it's an interesting case study to look at now. So, so there are three people that I see who've done that. 1, 2, 3. Out of so many participants, right? Just 3 people. That's less than 1%. That's less than 1% of the people who've closed their bank accounts. And if you think of it, why we do not close bank accounts? Because one, banks have kind of made that as a painful process, right? You have to go to a branch, you have to spend 30 minutes, understand what is the procedure, then close a bank account. And then we are probably not, we are probably not motivated to do it. We probably don't have enough motivation to do it. So generally, people generally, unless and until the bank really, sucks big time. Let's say, okay, I'll be a little bold here. Let's say the kinds of Bank of Maharashtra and maybe SBI of sorts. You generally not motivated to change your bank account, right? So that's a competitive advantage, right? That is a example of a competitive advantage. So if you're buying, maybe stocks like HDFC, there's a good chance that HDFC will be able to retain the clients that it has for a longer period of time. So Warren Buffett gives big importance to the whole concept of moat, and his entire investment philosophy revolves around this. Okay, again, I can go on about this point, but probably that's for a later discussion, maybe someday more in depth. Today, I just want to build an overview for all of you. Then part C is able and trustworthy management. Okay, extremely important, both ability as well as trustworthy. Now, ability, a good example that I can give you here is Bajaj Finance. Right, the stock has been rock star for last 5-6 years, but has taken a crazy toll in the last 2 months. If you look at Bajaj Finance stock price, it has given phenomenal returns to the shareholders over a period of last 5-6 years, but in the last 2 months, it has almost dropped down by 50%. Now, I think a majority of the success of Bajaj Finance can be assigned to the ability of the management. Right, so same NBFC business, hundreds of companies in India doing it, but incredible execution of the business, focusing more on building the database, leveraging on artificial intelligence and all the technologies around it. Another example for me personally of an excellent management is another company called Tasty Bites. Okay, so I don't know how many of you have heard of this company, but Tasty Bites is into the owner of that company is Mars, right? The Mars chocolates that you've seen. And what Tasty Bites basically does is it makes gourmet Indian ready-to-eat food, and it sells that in the US, in the Costco's and Walmarts of the world. In terms of trustworthy management, I'll give you a couple of negative examples. Okay, so the one that I just came across this month. Currently, in one of my equity classes, I'm discussing about this company called Relaxo. Okay, now Relaxo is in the footwear business, and I'm not raising a red alarm here. I'm not saying that there is something wrong with Relaxo, but I'll just give you a situation. So Relaxo into footwear business, and Relaxo is managed by the Dua family in India. So there are 2 brothers who kind of draw salary from the company. Now, a competitor of Relaxo is Bata, right? All of us know Bata. Now, Bata's top management on an average draw a salary of maybe 2 to 3 crores per annum. But Bata and Relaxo are more or less same in size. So the top guys at Bata, right? The top guys, they draw a salary for about 2 to 3 crores. Whereas the top Relaxo guys, they draw a salary of roughly 7.5 crore each, right? And why? Because they say that Relaxo, the promoters own roughly about 70% shares of the company. So there is nothing illegal about it. There is nothing that stops them from drawing such a heavy salary. But two guys drawing 7.5 crores each, that's a total 15 crore salary, right? And what it tells you a little bit about corporate governance, because the more salary promoters give to themselves, the less money is left for you and me as a shareholder. So that's the able and trustworthy management. And then finally, the last point that Warren Buffett looks at after everything else is the valuation, which is going to be the topic of my next class when we start with it. And we would have an entire session dedicated to how do you look at valuation from different valuation philosophies. Okay, so this is a rule. I kind of have a nice poster of these 4 rules, and I have put that poster in my study room. It used to be in my bedroom, and then my wife got annoyed with it someday, so I moved it to my study now. And every time I'm looking at stocks, I come back and I look at these 4 points, and I ask myself that is the stock fitting into these 4 criteria? All right, and hopefully, I hope that you also find this point of thinking or template useful. So more or less, as far as the content is concerned, this is from my side. Let me quickly do a good revision with you so that we can close the technical part of the session. So we started the session today. Again, I'm currently on level 0 class. I have not started with technical syllabus. I'm just trying to generate curiosity in you people. So we're in the level 0 class right now. And today's topic was learning equity investments, more of a background rather than getting into nitty-gritties. So what we did is initially we did an example of starting a small business, and then we converted our partnership into a company, and slowly we grew the size of the business. And then in the process, we learned that different investors will come in as the company is growing. So we typically started with something called as friends and family round, where Dashrath came in. Then we went to angels. Then we went to, help me with it. After angels, we went to VCs. After VCs, we went to PEs, right? And then after that, and see, it's not a rule that every company has to follow the same trajectory, but generally a lot of them will end up following that. And then after PEs, we looked at the IPOs, right? Now, once IPO was done, that IPO was called what type of market? IPO was called what type of market? Primary market. Why primary? Because the company and shareholder are dealing with each other directly. But once you and I have the shares, then we go to the secondary market. And in the secondary market, who's dealing with whom? In the secondary market, the shareholders are dealing with each other. And when you're buying shares of a company, what you want to think is, and that was kind of our main point, that when you're buying shares of the company, you want to think that you're buying a business. You're not really buying shares, you're buying a business. And the moment you learn to think that way, I think life becomes much more easier in the markets. And then after that, we went on to the Warren Buffett stock picking thought process. And we discussed that there are 4 criteria based on which Warren Buffett picks up stocks. Number 1, businesses that we understand, favorable long-term economics, able and trustworthy management, and finally the valuation. So more or less our content for the day is over. I'm going to use next 10-15 minutes for Q&A. And after that, I'm going to discuss about the structure of the class, schedule, and how the things are going to be. So Mayank, on YouTube, we would be discussing the schedule. What I would request is if you guys have any questions with respect to the class, with respect to the session, if you feel that there's anything that you'd like to ask, uh, please post your please post your queries in the chat box. Or if you want to ask anything orally, uh, say that I want to talk on the chat box, and then I would activate or enable your audio. Okay. Um, First question I'm getting is from Jimit Shah. He's asking, can I recommend some books for investment or stocks? Um, so Jimit, there is a massive list of the books that from which we can learn from. But if you want a very easy kind of read to just get started with the things, then I'll recommend there's a book called Coffee Can Investing by a fund manager, Saurabh Mukherjee. He's extremely popular these days. You would see him on television and on YouTube all the time. In fact, he was recently at FinTree on one of the sessions that we did. So Coffee Can Investing is a great book, just to get things started. And if you feel that you want to grow slightly more technical, then recently I read an excellent book, great for beginners. It's called The Little Book That Builds Wealth. Little Book That Builds Wealth by Pat Dorsey. That's also a beautiful book. It's an easy read. You can finish it in a morning's time, and I'm sure you'd enjoy reading the book. Second question that's coming is, can you explain favorable long-term economics again? Abhishek, I'm going to simplify this. So favorable long-term economics is that at times, there are certain industries which are, moving with time, and there are certain industries which are moving against the time, right? So there could be a lot of examples. For example, Kodak was a great example that they just could not pick up race with the time. Another example that I see, this is from a book called Blue Ocean that I recently read. Uh, Another great example here is circuses, right? I mean, all of us, when we were kids, we went to at least a circle a year, like we went to the circuses. But now we don't see that industry anymore, correct? So basically, what industry has a very long-term movement, and especially stock within the industry, which is going to survive, and more or less things are working in its favor. Which subject is more difficult? So I'm going to talk about CFA level 1 studies in general soon, once I answer all the technical queries. So we'll reach there. Let me pick up one or two questions. Okay, Kshitij, I'm going to try and answer that question asked by Kshitij. Kshitij says, what is the importance of the circle of competence? Knowledge-wise, is it better to diversify across sector or just stay concentrated? Okay, so Kshitij, that's a great question. I'll just give you guys a background of what he's talking about. So Warren Buffett has this concept called circle of competence. What he basically means is, he means that once you decide to invest into a stock, you need to know everything that's there to know about that particular business or the industry. For example, right now I'm I'm kind of learning how the footwear industry works, and if I decide to invest into a footwear stock, then I would try to learn as much as I can and try to be an expert in the footwear space. So next time, there's an opportunity that arises, I don't have to spend too much of time learning. So Warren Buffett says, identify what's your circle of competence and stay there and don't move outside your circle of competence. but slowly increase, the bandwidth. And I kind of completely agree with that thought process. Because over the period of time, what I've learned is if you don't understand an industry and if you get into it, some of the other day it will backfire. So from that perspective, I'm totally gung ho on the concept. Okay, so let's talk about classes now. Let's talk about classes, and then probably we can have some more discussion. So some important rules or structure of how the classes are going to be. So number one is that your schedule is going to be the timings of the classes. Timings of the classes are going to be on Sunday mornings, right? The time that we have today. So we're going to have Sunday. The typical timing is going to be from 8 to 1 p.m. 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. It's going to be a 5-hour class. But initially, I'm just going to do a 2.5 hour classes, at least for the first 1 month, and then gradually increase the time and ease you into the syllabus. So do you guys need a break now? I'm anyways going to finish the session soon, so no break. Okay, good. So no break. We're done more or less with technical content. We're done. Now we're just discussing about how to study and stuff around it. Okay, so Sunday 8 to 1 p.m. Now, till the time lockdown is in place, then the sessions are going to be live online. And post lockdown, then we'll move to classroom. Okay, now within the classroom, we're going to have classroom feature accessible at 4 geographies. So it's going to be Pune, Mumbai, and it's going to be Bangalore, and it's going to be Hyderabad. So we're going to be operating out of these 4 geographies. Now, most of the session in Pune would be live in person. That's because I stay in this city. So I would be taking these classes live in person. And the sessions would be broadcasted live to Mumbai, Bangalore, and Hyderabad classrooms. So your experience in these classrooms would be as good as live class because we've been able to leverage on the technology. So during the class, you can pick up a mic and talk to me, and I can see you, and you can see me during the classroom. So your experience is exactly the same. Now, will I be physically traveling to Mumbai, Bangalore, and Hyderabad? So I would love to, but it really depends on the whole lockdown environment and how easy it is to move around from one city to another. But will I be coming to Mumbai every week this season the way I used to do it last week? So most likely no, because my guess is that it's not going to be easy traveling from one city to another. So most of the sessions, they're going to be live in person in Pune, and they would be broadcasted in the classrooms at respective cities. We are not recommending anyone outside these 4 cities to sign up for this program, just because we are not sure how the things are going to be post lockdown. So if you're from any of those 4 cities, or if you feel that you would be able to travel easily, then definitely, you're definitely going to find this program useful. Okay, so that's about timing. Now, one important disclaimer here is that I am kind of a sucker of your time of sorts, and I may need extra time. Okay, so I do prepare a calendar, and you would be getting a schedule very soon, which will tell you on what date, what topic is going to happen. But I don't push myself to finish a particular subject within the time if the class is not going smooth, or maybe the audience is not absorbing the concept. So it may happen that I might fall short of the time, and I might demand some extra time from you. Now, typically the extra sessions, when will they happen? So they may happen on Saturdays, uh, very few, maybe 3 or 4 Saturdays. And at extreme, if you feel that we're really significantly short of time, I may draw some time on weekdays. But if I do sessions on weekdays and I understand that people are working that time, so what I do is I record all the weekday sessions and I put them on the FinTree LMS so that you guys can access that for a week's time. We typically keep them on the LMS for 7 days. So even if you miss the live session, because I took it on weekdays, you can always watch the recording later on and be at par with the rest of the class. Okay, so that's how typically the class timings and the class structure is going to be. Now in terms of how the class is structured, what your experience is going to be like. So every class is broken down into 3 parts. So in every classroom session, we typically do 3 things. In the morning, when we get started with the session, we do something called as warm up. Now I've been using this technique for last 10 years and roughly about 40 batches and more than 7 to 8,000 candidates, CFA candidates, and it has given phenomenal results. So what we do in a warm up session is I will throw random numerical practice questions at you. So typically they will require you to calculate something, and this calculation might be something that we've done maybe 3 months ago in the class, right? And probably you've completely forgotten. And then early in the morning, you come all excited in the class, and I'll throw this random question at you, and probably tell you that, see, you don't remember everything, so don't be very don't be very arrogant there. So these sessions are fun. They're not a lot of time, about 10-15 minutes. And the idea with these sessions is to kind of help you recall the concepts randomly so that they get into permanent part of your memory. Then we would have a main session. During the main sessions, I tend to give a lot of breaks. I generally, like today, I extended because it was a first day and we were also streaming on YouTube. So I did not want to have a break in between. But I generally like to do about 15 minutes of class and 10-15 minutes of break. So there would be a lot of breaks during the session. And then towards the end of the class, we do something called as jamming. And what is a jamming? So it is again some sort of a rapid fire Q&A session that I'm going to have with you, which is going to be verbal, not written. For example, now today, out of all the audience, I might pick up a random one. For example, let's do an experiment. Aarti, if you're participating, I'm enabling your audio. Can you just say hi or say something there? And we'll also probably know if she was listening to us or dozing off. Aarti, can you unmute yourself, please? Okay, let's try someone else. Prerna. Anyone volunteer? Anyone volunteer with a mic ready?
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Who is this?
Prerna.
Okay. Hi, Prerna. Good. So, Prerna, question to you. Can I ask?
Sure.
Okay. As if you have a choice. What do you understand by a moat?
So that's my favorite topic. So I work for Morningstar, and Morningstar does extensive research on moat.
Correct.
And
Yes.
it's one of our.
Pat Dorsey is ex Morningstar head of equity research, the one who wrote the book.
Yeah.
Yes.
So moat is competitive advantage, and we typically look at companies that would be able to sustain against their competitors and have an upper hand for the next 20 years. If they have a leverage of about 20 years, then we will give them a rating of wide moat, which means they are well sorted. And if they have an advantage of about 10 to 15 years in comparison to their competitors, then it's a narrow moat. Explaining in very simple terms, we will look at their price performance and switching. So there are several categories that we look into.
True.
But to make it very simple, whether they want to switch I could go on, sorry.
Yeah, I know. And while you were speaking, I could remember because I think Pat Dorsey is the one who set up your practice with moats, I guess. And in his book, at least in his book, he says that. And while you were speaking, I could remember, all those paragraphs that I read in the book. But excellent. Thank you very much, Prerna. I appreciate.
Most
And
welcome.
Aarti, I want you to be ready next class onwards. So there you go. So that's what you mean by that's how a jamming session is going to be, where I'll randomly be throwing questions and you have to answer. And if you don't answer, we'll punish you. Typically in the classroom, how I punish is I just outrightly insult people with some or the other stupid things. But maybe in the online we'll figure out something. Probably I'll put you on the camera or something like that. But it's fun, and the whole thing with jamming is, it keeps you on the edge. At times I put jamming in the main session, and it just makes the whole session fun. Okay, so that's how your experience is going to be during the classroom. Now, third part is how to study. Right? What is going to be my expectation from you, and what do I expect you to do on a daily basis? How do we do which subject, which books, and all of that part we get down here. So this class is primarily focused for the December or the Feb exams next year, right? So December 2020 or Feb 2021. If you're writing the exam after that, it's okay to attend. I mean, of course, you get to kind of learn earlier, so that's an advantage. But I'm going to be kind of focused more on December, and I'm going to finish the syllabus here. So Feb people are going to have some sort of advantage of doing it in advance. So what I'm going to expect from you is to break down your studies into these parts. Before you come to the class, what I want you to do is watch the video. Okay. So what do I mean by the video? So all of you would be getting access to FinTree's learning management system. I'm quickly going to show you how that system works. Okay, so I'll get rid of the Berkshire here. So you go on to the FinTree India website, you would be asked to put in your login ID and password. My internet is a little slow today. Okay, so the website will eventually come up. So once it comes up, I will show you. So before you start with the class, you watch video. And where do you watch the video? You watch the video on FinTree Learning Management System, right? So all of the classroom people would typically be also enabled access on the LMS, depending on what format you signed up for. So that all that information our team will help you. Now, this is the only thing that's expected, nothing else. For example, next class, if I tell you that I'm going to do equity level 0, then you go to the FinTree LMS and you'd find that there's already an equity video. Now, during the class, I expect you to do 3 things. Number 1, listen. Number 2, solve if I'm doing some numbers. And number 3, and extremely important, is ask questions. Right? So I'll encourage you to ask questions, as many as you can. And I'm careful, while answering the question. So I would probably, for example, if there are 10 questions asked, I will probably take 3 or 4 of them and take the remaining ones later on, so that we optimize the time in the class. But you ask questions as many as you can, because that's how we're going to learn. What you don't have to do during the class is you don't have to worry too much about taking notes, right? I mean, taking notes during the class is how we did this in the school, and I don't think that's effective anymore. I think it just kills the time and not very productive. You would be much more better off if you're listening actively And all the notes that I do, which you can see on my screen now, you would anyways be getting them in a PDF file on the same day, right? So you can always revise to what we did in the class. So you don't have to spend or distract yourself worrying about writing too much. Now, what is the difference between a video and a class? Like what, for example, if we have videos for everything, what is going to be the difference? The majority of the difference comes from the examples and the case studies that I do in the live session, right? So that's one big differentiator. The reason why you want to participate in the live classes is that you'd find that we're always talking about what's happening in the economy today, or if you're learning FRA, you would typically be pulling out annual reports and listening to them. So when you do something, that's a better way of learning than just listening to something. So we will do a lot of examples and live case studies. And second thing, which I have learned over a period of time, is that the class is going to keep you disciplined, right? And that is an extremely important part, because the CFA, it's not a 1 month exam where you study for 2-3 weeks or a month and you go and take the exam. It doesn't work that way. It's a program where you have to put in intense amount of studies for consistently over a period of 6 months. And one of the things that class does is it tells you what content is to be done in what period, how other people are doing in the class, how other people are performing in the class. Are they being able to answer questions during jamming sessions, during warm-up sessions? So it just keeps you disciplined with the entire process. And then step number 3 is that when you go back home, what you need to do in step number 1 and 2, you've kind of got 80-90%. Then you want to practice and revise, right? So when you go back home, you want to practice and revise, and your practice and revision is going to happen this way. For revision, you're going to make use of the juice notes. Okay, so you don't have to buy any books whatsoever. In fact, if you ever come to FinTree classroom or talk to any of our alumni, they'll swear by the juice notes. These are graphical notes in a flowchart type of fashion. And if you have juice notes, you don't need any other notes whatsoever, as long as you're complementing them or using them along with my classes or my videos. So use juice notes. Then on FinTree LMS, you would find 5,000 practice questions. And we've written them very carefully. These questions were written by a team of CFA charter holders or CFA level 3 candidates. And these are high quality practice questions, very indicative of the type of experience you would have on the actual exams. So you practice all the 5,000 questions that we have on the LMS. Then you practice questions from CFA curriculum, the books that CFA curriculum gives you. And I'll tell you when and how. Like every week, I'll be giving you a target that this is what I want you to do in this particular week. And then what you want to do is you want to be prepared for the next weekly test that's going to happen in the class. So what do I mean by that? For example, today, if you learned, let's say, basics of equity, then next week there might be a test on basics of equity in the class. So whatever we did in the previous week, subsequent week, you write the test, and then you benchmark your results with rest of the people, and you kind of understand where you are in the scheme of things. Okay, so that's typically your how to study schedule. And it's not complicated, it's very simple. Before the next class, watch the video, then participate in the class, and after the class, make use of the juice notes and just practice the questions. And make sure you write FinTree weekly tests, and you keep on doing this week by week basis. And before you realize, you would be through with the exams. Okay, so that's typically how we're going to study or how we're going to approach. Now, what I expect you to do now is step number 1, make sure that your FinTree LMS account is active. Let me just check if that is popped up. Okay, just give me a minute here. All right. So I've been able to log in. Once you put your user ID and password, you typically come on this type of page. Now, this is your level 0 program. This is your level 1. So let me bring you on the level 1 content. And you typically find it broken down into 3 pieces: learn, practice, and revise. So you would have access to these modules depending on what you've signed up for. So we have variants of platinum and a premium there. Let us say you want to look at equity. So next class, if I told you that I'm going to do equity investments of level 1, for example, equity valuation. So you come on this page, and you come on this page, you would see a summary here at the top, which will say, how many hours of videos we have. So 2 hours of videos, 1.4 hours required to solve the practice questions of FinTree. Then Q&A videos of another 1.5 hours. And your total investment in this particular topic is roughly 9 hours. The level of difficulty is 3-star on a scale of 5. How to study for this topic. And then these are all the videos and learning outcome wise questions. For example, if you want to see this particular video, click on that. It will pop up the video for you. So it's a fairly easy system to use. And that's how you're going to leverage on all the content that we've built over a period of time. Okay, so that's your, make sure that your FinTree LMS is active. Now within FinTree LMS, what you have to ensure is you should have access to level 0 and you should have access to level 1 as well. Okay. Now, if you've not signed up for FinTree course yet, like there are a lot of people on YouTube who are participating today, the level 0 part is free for everyone. Okay, so for level 0, you don't need to sign up. You just have to set up an account on the website and you get access to it. And in case if you need access, what you need to do is you need to reach out on admin. Okay, I'll pass on your email, Dashrath. So you reach out on Dashrath@fintreeindia.com. Dashrath@fintreeindia.com. That is DASHRATH@fintreeindia.com. Just write him an email. He'll send you a sign-up process. Register yourself on the FinTree LMS and you can get your account activated. So that's your step number 1. Step number 2, I run a WhatsApp broadcast list for the classroom participants. So what do you mean by WhatsApp broadcast list? It's some sort of a bulk emailing, equivalent to bulk emailing system, but it allows me to communicate with all of you in one go. And there is a code that you need in order for you to get added to my broadcast list. So you get in touch with admin. Maybe most of you have already sent that contact code to me. And in case if you haven't, get in touch with admin. They will share the code. And with that code, you get added to my broadcast. And that's how you'd be able to communicate with me on one-on-one through the WhatsApp communication channel. Okay, so in the chat box, Dashrath, you posted for panelists. You probably want to copy paste and put that for everyone, maybe a little better formatted. Step number 3, I want you to buy a calculator, and I would recommend you to buy early because these calculators that we use for CFA or FRM exams, these are typically imported. And right now, a lot of import activity has stopped. So there's a probability that there might be shortage in the market. So right now, these calculators are available on Amazon. The one that I want you to buy is called Texas Instruments BA2 Plus Professional. So I checked last night, it was available on Amazon. So see if you can order that calculator for yourself. At least in India, we can buy them at this moment. So probably if you get a chance, go ahead and buy them. Texas Instrument BA2 Plus Professional. I want you to buy the professional calculator. Not the student version. If you get confused on which calculator to buy, just buy the expensive one. So there is one calculator that you get for 2,500 and one you get for 4,000. So I want you to buy the 4,000 one. It gives you some extra features. You'll understand them as we progress. Okay, and I think that's more or less everything from my side. I've finished what I wanted to discuss. And now next 10-15 minutes, I'll take your queries and then we will call it a day today. Next session, I'm going to continue with equity. Next session, I'm going to continue with equity session, but I'm going to go a little more technical and I'm going to work on some valuation techniques with you. Not very in depth, but we would have a very broad overview of valuation techniques. All right, and those of you who are on YouTube, if you guys are still there, I see there are about 30 to 40 people there. This is something that I've been doing and it has been working. So please like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. We right now we are at about 80 odd thousand subscribers. We're trying to hit about 100,000 there. So hopefully, if you guys have help, we should be able to reach there fast. Okay, so let me answer some questions now. First question is, do we require to buy Kaplan-Schweizer notes for practice? Amit, no, you don't need Kaplan notes. In fact, in the last 3 or 4 seasons, none of the students have, bought the Kaplan notes in the class. And those of the students who ended up buying them, they never really touched them. Okay, so with juice notes, we feel that we've kind of made the whole Kaplan redundant. And once you see the juice notes and you see how well articulated and beautifully written they are, you would not need to use Kaplan notes. How do we get the juice notes? That's a great question. So maybe I could give a round. So in my office here, we have a big wall of all the juice notes that we printed for this year, and we couldn't distribute because of the COVID situation. So right now, what we're hoping that situation will improve in a month's time, and if it does, then we'll be able to give you the print versions, right? So I mean the printed notes, which we already have done. And if it does not improve, then we'll probably have to give you soft copies in a PDF format. So we're currently working around that. So right now, for a month, my answer to you is I don't know. There is uncertainty around it, but maybe after a month, we'll have some better visibility there. Next question, next question is, I have a BA2 calculator plus calculator. Do I have to buy professional? No, Suji. If you've already bought a BA2, like the student version, it's okay to have them. I mean, that calculator also works. I use the same one and I managed to pass. So that's kind of a proof. But having a professional one is always good. It gives you some extra features. So if you have professional, I mean, if you haven't bought it, buy a professional. But if you've already bought it, just work with what you have. That's perfectly all right. No problem there. Okay, next question. I love this one. So thank you for asking that, Akshay. Akshay is asking, how many hours do I need to study every day, right? How many hours every day? So that's I get that quite a lot, and I have a good answer for that, a very practical that works for all of us. So typically, I'm assuming you're a working professional. So this is for working people, right? If you're a student, you have liberty of time, but for working people who have a full-time job, from Monday to Friday, from Monday to Friday, you invest 2 hours at least a day, a dedicated time for your studies, right? Not multitasking time, not checking email and studying together time. A 2 hours a day, dedicated time for studies, and preferably if you can manage early in the morning. How many of you feel that you can manage early morning studies? Just say yes, or probably on YouTube, just say me. Okay. And how many of you feel I would have liked it, but I can't do it because I have early morning office, let's say at 9 o'clock. How many of you feel I have an early morning office? Okay. So here's what I recommend. See, if you're really serious about passing the exams, you would have to make some lifestyle changes, right? You're not just signing up for a course, you're making a significant commitment to it, and you have to make some lifestyle changes. One of the things that I strongly encourage you to do is to start a little early in the morning. For example, let's say these days you start your days at 7 o'clock. Uh, I would recommend you start your day at 5 in the morning and save yourself this 2 hours. And initially you'd feel like, this is outrightly stupid, who gets up at 5 or who gets up at 4. But trust me, you do this for, a week or two, and automatically your body will get used to it. And what we're doing at level 1 is we're inculcating strong habits, which will help us, throughout the CFA program for next 2.5 years. So generally, how I look at things is that we have limited time in a day, and we have very limited energy, the mental bandwidth to spend. So typically early in the morning, when you have slept well for 6, 7 hours, 8 hours, you start your day, you're at your best, your brain is functioning, at its prime. And I think that's the time when you can really leverage on your studies. And experiment this for a few days. It has worked really well for me, and maybe it will work for you. Then on Saturday and Sunday, I would expect you to put in a combined 15 to 16 hours. That's about 8 hours each, right? So how do you do that? Maybe you just spend the whole 16 hours on Sunday if you think you can pull that off, or maybe you break it down into 8 hours each. And if you do this cycle consistently without any breaks for a period of 4 to 5 months, you're through with the level 1 exams, right? I mean, this cycle gives us, so let's calculate, right? About 10 hours on weekdays, and let's say about 15 hours on weekends. So we're looking at 25 hours a week, 100 hours a month. So if you have a 5-month study process, excluding other time, we're looking at minimum 500 hours. Is there a technical problem? Is there an internet problem? Do you want me to repeat what I said? Okay, good. So, so that's what is the expectation on the time front. It's you do 2 hours every day consistently. It's going to do the magic for us. Will I be doing so? Hopefully that answers your question of how many hours I expect. And if you're a full-time student, you multiply everything with 5. So you multiply everything with 5, 4. I mean, you have nothing else to do with your life. The only thing that you do is study. And here's a magic trick, by the way. This is a success trick that works like a charm. What I want you to do is make a list of all the things that you love in your life. For example, let's say you love watching movies and probably spending time on Netflix, or maybe you love going out, or you love going outdoors, whatever you like. Make a list of it, and then make sure that you don't do any of it for the next 5 months. All the good things in your life, take them and throw them in the trash can. And here's the thumb rule: your success on these professional exams, CFA, FRM, they have a relation or a correlation. That's a statistical term I'm trying to use here. Is they have a very strong correlation with how miserable your personal life is. So the more miserable you make yourself, the better you're going to do with this exam. It's simply a game of time. Just give it time, and very soon you'll be able to get that charter certificate on your wall, and that's going to be a great feeling, right? But you'd have to invest time there. Okay, so that's about time. Second question is, will I be doing a separate batch for February? No, we would just be adding people to the existing batch. So if there's anyone who's considering writing Feb 2021, I'll recommend this is a good time to start. Because if you come in, let's say 2 months down the line, we would just be adding you to the existing batch, and then probably there would be certain topics you might have to cover with the help of videos. Is there going to be any change in the juice notes version? No. The CFA Institute has already announced that the 2020 and 2021 curriculum is going to be same. So the current juice notes will also work for 2021 season. Benini has some questions. Benini, what happens is I keep on receiving questions on my chat box, so I happen to miss the previous ones. One easy technique is you can just copy paste and put your questions again so that it comes in the current feed. When are the results announced? So typically results are announced 45 days after the exams are conducted. Okay, let me take one question from YouTube. Abhishek, in your class for level 1, I remember in that batch you said in one phase you can attend the classroom sessions for free. Abhishek, yes. So we used to have a club membership mechanism for the classroom participants, and that is still exists for all the previous people who signed up for the course. However, in the online, we do not really have a control on who is on the other side of the screen, right? And that's a significant limitation for us. So the club membership that you signed up for still exists, but it exists only in a classroom environment. It wouldn't exist in an online environment. Rajendra has a question. I'm a new subscriber. Tell me what will be the coaching cost. Rajendra, just get in touch with admin. I'm not really involved in that process. So write an email to admin or call up on the FinTree helpline. So our team will help you out there. Okay, let's take a few more questions here. How does scoring happens on the exam? How does scoring happens on the exam? Is there a weightage subject-wise? Yes, Jumi. There is a subject-wise weight mechanism. It's on the FinTree website. Just look up, CFA weights. You'll find it there. And there are strategies on which subjects we want to optimize, which subjects we can take it a little easy, but not now. Right now we just focus on learning the concept and enjoying the subject. Maybe once we're closer to exam, we can sit and optimize about how we want to focus on passing the exams. Prerna, I prefer online if Mumbai will be virtual classrooms at a major league. Can we not do it online instead? No, Prerna. So for CFA level 1, we're not doing direct to home. Once post lockdown, it would be direct to classroom. But in Mumbai, we are considering having 2 locations instead of 1. So right now we're at Dadar, but very soon there's a good chance post lockdown you would find us in Thane as well. So that gives you a little bit of flexibility there. But again, I'm not promising, but there's a good probability that happens. Are the timings same for classroom sessions? Yes, Abhishek. They remain on Sunday mornings. What is the order of subjects to study? So Arnav, wait for a couple of sessions. We are preparing the detailed schedule or a calendar. So once that is released, you would get an idea on the sequence of the subjects. Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about prospects of obtaining CFA designation? Kamal, if you can elaborate on your question, do you mean the process for getting the charter or how it benefits after getting a charter? I'm just waiting for Kamal to answer in case if he's still participating in the session. Okay, benefits of getting a charter. Wow, that would take us, completely different session. But uh, I'll tell you some benefits. Number one, uh, getting a charter. Number one is some sort of a borderline uh, ego pampering activity of sorts. You kind of get to write CFA designation in front of your name. You feel good about that. I mean, that's one personal benefit. You'd see a lot of people boasting their CFA charters, so that's definitely people do. Second is clearly on the career front, you get better money, you get good pace, you get a good start, and most importantly, you get a good profile, which a lot of people in finance don't get easily. And third benefit, which is not very apparent, but which I've seen actually makes a lot of difference in the long run, is the networking benefit. See, one of the thing with CFA is, and I think that's what distinguishes CFA from most of the other global bodies, is there is phenomenal network effect that goes into the CFA circles. For example, the Pune chapter itself, uh, they keep on having some of the other sessions prior to the COVID situation. There was a session almost every 15 day or maybe a month, and you can go and show up for the session. You'd get access to meet a lot of fund managers operating within this geography. You show your face to them, you ask them if they're hiring right now. So there's a significant networking benefit that comes with CFA. So if I have to summarize, it's going to make you feel good about yourself. B, you're going to get decent job, maybe good pay, good profile, definitely. And C, a significant networking benefit. If I miss the session, how can I catch up? You'd have to watch the videos. If you miss the session, you'd have to watch the videos. That's the only option you have. I would not really be repeating the sessions again. So for example, if you miss next class, then you don't have a choice but to go and see these sessions that I'm doing. These sessions, not all of them would be available on the LMS. Some of them will be, some of them will not be. But we already have videos on the LMS. You can go and watch them. Can CFA level 1 be covered in 3-4 months if I have my CA exams also? Dilip, that's doable. People do it, assuming you're doing it full time and you're willing to put in 10 to 12 hours a day, can be done. Okay, so Prerna has asked a question. I'm just going to rephrase that. Prerna is asking, Kshitij, I'm so sorry, I've been missing your question. I'll probably try to answer it later. Prerna is asking, if I have a question from recorded videos, how can I ask? Or if I have a doubt, how can I resolve the doubt? So you have two important doubt solving mechanism now. One is after the class. Okay, so one of the new thing that I've started doing from this season is that once the class gets over, like how I'm waiting back, you can throw your questions at me on the chat box or orally, whatever way you like, and I would try to answer them. Okay, so that's definitely one way that would work. Second option is we have excellent forums on the FinTree side, right? And one of the things that distinguishes FinTree forums from most of the forums all over the world is that the FinTree forums are broken down per reading. So there's a dedicated forum per reading. For example, in CFA level 1, let's say we have a reading called hypothesis testing. So we have a dedicated forum for that. And all the questions that you have on hypothesis testing, you can keep on posting them under the forum. And then other people would reply, and people from our team will also reply to them. And if none of this is not your thing, you feel that I don't want to ask question to in the live class, for whatever reason, you don't want forums, then the third option you have is you can email your queries to support@fintreeindia.com. But what we're slowly doing is we're moving the entire support on the forums, right? So there's a possibility that you send email on this email ID, and then those guys will ask you to again go and post your question on the forum so that we answer there. And the whole idea with doing that is we've realized that over a period of time, people have the same questions, right? So once we put them on the forum, you can benefit by reading other people's query as well. Okay, now if you feel that apart from this, if you want to get in touch with me because you have some problem that you would like to discuss, or you want to have someone to talk to, like especially I mean career problems. So if you feel that you want to discuss about your job, or you want to discuss about study strategy or whatever, then what you'd have to do is call up on the FinTree number and check schedule time with them. These days, now that we are in lockdown, I've started doing 2 hours a day meetings on Zoom with people. So check with them if some time slot is available in the coming week or after that, and just book a time slot and show up for the meeting, and that's it. We can have a discussion there. Okay, guys. So I have another session in 7 minutes time. So I have time for maybe 1 or 2 last queries. Kshitij, I don't think I'll be able to answer your question here, but don't worry. Post your question in the next class. We have 6 months with each other, so I'll probably try to answer it then. Okay, so one thing, guys, is I know some of you have been emailing me stuff, so please don't email. I honestly, what I have is I have some sort of a communication fatigue. I'm just I just feel that I'm kind of done with email now. I hate opening my email and looking at them, and especially when I look at the number of 100 emails I have, I feel that I'll never be able to finish them. So if you have to reach out to me, I think you all of you have my WhatsApp number, or if you don't, my team will share it with you. It's my personal number. That's the only number I carry. So you can WhatsApp it to me. Give me some time, maybe 2 to 3 days. I'll reply back eventually. And otherwise, just schedule some time and set up a Zoom meeting. I think that's easier. We can resolve your queries there. Okay, so I think with this, I'm going to close off the session today. On a final note, please like, comment, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. That really helps us getting the traction. And be ready for the next class. It's going to be on next Sunday, same time, from morning 8 to 10:05. The first 2 classes we would be broadcasting live on YouTube, and it is again going to be on equity investments. It is again going to be on equity investments, where we would be going a notch higher than where we were today, and we would probably be doing a little bit of numbers and get you into the whole scheme of things. So that's it from my side. That's it from my side. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time on Sunday morning, and I hope that you found the session useful. Let's connect soon next Sunday.